So after we go through the book of Second Chronicle, we're going to jump right into Ezra next week sometime. So God bless you. I hope you tune in and listen to live Bible reading minister with Minister Junior Mendez kind of narrating what's happening in this ministry. Live Bible reading ministry. You can find us online at livebiblereadingministry.com. You can find us on Facebook, Live Bible Reading Ministry, or in YouTube. Or in Facebook, Live Bible Reading Ministry group. There is a group called Live Bible Reading Ministry where I post all my videos establishing Live Bible reading each night at 10 o'clock. Sometimes we're not on Facebook or YouTube. We're on Twitter, or we on Twitch or Instagram. So sometimes I move around a little bit, but we always pick up where we left off when we come back to Facebook and YouTube. But you could always find each reading on YouTube, Live Bible Reading Ministry and YouTube channel. Please subscribe, make a comment, like us on Facebook. Please let us know you're watching. Give us an amen when you hear the words of the Lord, because I'm not going to preach much like the preacher in the church. I am just going to play for you. I'm going to read live reading of the scriptures, Old Testament scriptures. So please tune in. I thank you very much for listening, each and every one of you. And if you have children, you could also let your children listen to these, because this is like a play. Even though they cannot read, but they could listen. So please tune in to Live Bible Reading Ministry each night. Sometime we repeat. We always give you an overview, our introduction to each book of the Bible when we present it. All right, before we present it, we might give you a replay and a repeat sometime, because I know some of you cannot watch every night and it's overwhelming. And I also want to thank each one. I want to thank you, all of you, who I post on your page or send you a link or a text or a video. Please forgive me. I just want to establish a little bit more. And most of you, my friends on Facebook, but anyone who do not want to hear the Bible, please unfriend me. Please unfriend me. You don't need to be friends with me, because I'm going to keep posting videos. I'm going to keep posting the scriptures. And you might not be a religious person or a godly person or a righteous person, or you just don't want to hear that. Please turn me off. Just unfriend me, please, because I'm going to keep sending these links to you. Okay? I'm just doing this because you want my friend, use my friend on Facebook or on Twitter. And if you get that message, please, if you like what's going on, give me a like or an amen. And I thank you very much for tuning. It's 10 o'clock. Time to listen to Live Bible Reading Ministry. Tonight, we're going to come to you with the book of Second Chronicle. So tune in. Live Bible Reading Ministry. Thank you. Amen. So now, coming down to the end of Second Chronicle, you will find that the Jews are getting ready to return to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem and to rebuild the temple of God under Esther and Zerubbabel. I mean, not Esther, but Ezra. Ezra and Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel was mostly in charge of rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, and Zerubbabel also with the building of the temple. But Ezra was the one who was re-establishing the laws of God, re-establishing temple worship. It was getting all the Levites, Levitical priesthood, to put them in place to begin temple worship. But under Ezra, you will find that he had a problem, because what happened was all the Jews that was taken into captivity, some of them live up to try to keep the tradition of the Jews. Ezra was getting together all the priesthood. But what he found out was a lot of the priests was intermingling, intermarriage with the other nation, with the other nations that was against God, was against the Jews, who was not into temple worship. They was into other gods, idolatry. And some of the Jews were intermingling with all these other Gentile nations. So Ezra wanted to find the pure blood from the Levite tribe. They was to put back into the temple of Jerusalem to start animal worship and sacrifices again. So Ezra was in charge of this. All right, so as we keep going right now, we're going to go through the book of 1st and 2nd Chronicles, and then we're also going to get into the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah is another one that really returning out to exile from the Babylonian exile, and they're trying to reestablish Jerusalem and the temple worship, reestablishing the laws and the commandments of God. Nehemiah, and then after Nehemiah, then you're going to have Hester, and then Job, the book of Job, and then you get into the book of Psalms. So right now, as we complete the book of 1st and 2nd Chronicle, we might finish this week sometime. We're going to finish up the book of Chronicles, and then we're going to dive right into the book of Ezra, because Ezra is going to lead this people, the Jews, back into Jerusalem, going to lead back his people into Israel to reestablish the kingdom or the Davidic covenant, a promise that God made to David that he was going to establish his throne forever. But at this time, I would like to, what I'd like to do, I'm going to go off base a little bit to give you a side view, another view of what happened to the temple when it was destroyed, or before that temple that Solomon built was destroyed. Few things that took place with the queen of the south, the queen of Sheba, who came to Jerusalem to visit Solomon and to see his wisdom, to see how wise man this king was. That even the queen of the south, the queen of Sheba, she said, half have not been told to what she have heard about Solomon. The other half have not been told. Had she not come to visit Jerusalem to see the wisdom of Solomon? Now, at this point, Solomon and Sheba went into a relationship that the Bible really didn't get into, but there's other books of the Bible which summarize what happened to the queen of the south with her visit with Solomon before she returned to Ethiopia, the queen of the south from Axiom, Ethiopia. So when she returned, she was basically conceived a child for Solomon. The seed were planted for the removal of the Ark of the Covenant. Now, Menelik was the name of the child when the queen of the south went back and she had this child, and Menelik returned to Jerusalem to visit his father. They said the resemblance of Solomon was exactly like it is. He looked just like Solomon. So when he went back, people thought it was King Solomon, even though Solomon was out of Jerusalem, was out of the city during this time. Menelik came into the temple and he removed the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant, you never hear nothing more about the Ark of the Covenant before the Judah or the tribe of Judah or the dynasty or the kingdom of Judah was taken into captivity by the Babylonian. Notice they did not carry the Ark of the Covenant into Babylon, but they took all the gold and silver and all the candlesticks and everything that David put together for temple worship was taken into captivity by Nebuchadnezzar into Babylon. So the queen of the south went back to Ethiopia bearing the child of Solomon. Now, the Bible don't speak much of this, but you will find this into the Ethiopian Bible. And if you want to see what the Ethiopian Bible is about, you could go to www.livebiblereadingministry.com. www.livebiblereadingministry.com, and you will find the Ethiopian Bible, where it gives you reference to what happened when the queen of the south, the queen of Sheba, went to visit Solomon in Jerusalem. But the Holy Bible, the King James Version of the Bible, leave some of these books out when they were put in the canonized version of the English Bible. Now, I also going to get into a little bit a history with how the Holy Bible, the King James Version of the Bible, came about. Now, we got to understand, first of all, the King James Version of the Bible of 1611, that is not the first original English translation Bible. The first English translation of the Bible was the Geneva Bible. The Geneva Bible, probably about 1500, somewhere in the 15th century. The Geneva Bible came about by I guess some of these biblical scholar was in England, because in England, there was a queen by the name of Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary the First. She was persecuting all religious people. She was burning all the Bibles that exist during the time of her reign in England. Bloody Mary, Mary the First, the king or the queen of England, and she were persecuting all the people who were printing Bible, because the English Bible at that time, they called it the Great Bible. This was a translation to English, but during that time, the Bible did not have chapters and verses at that time. And what happened was, all other Bibles were being destroyed, and Christians were persecuted because of the big king, they call it the Great Bible. Now, the Geneva Bible came about by I think John Wycliffe and a few others. I don't have the name right now in front of me. Basically, they printed the English Bible without the approval of the king, because after Bloody Mary the First, after she passed away, you have another queen that came along, Queen Elizabeth. But Queen Elizabeth the First, and she authorized they have the Geneva Bible to be printed, and they accept the Geneva Bible after a while, because the Geneva Bible was the first Bible to start have chapters and verses. The Geneva Bible in 15th century. Okay? So the King James Bible came long after the Geneva Bible. But Geneva Bible became accepted, well-known, well-accepted English translation of the scriptures, because you got to understand that the first 5 books, at least the Torah, the Hebrew Bible, was written in Hebrew language. The Hebrew Bible was written in Hebrew. And after that comes the New Testament. Long after the Old Testament, then came the New Testament, which was written in Greek, the Greek language, Aramaic, because Jesus did not speak so much Hebrew. He could, but basically at that time, Aramaic was the modern translation of the language the main language at that time. At the time of Jesus, it was also a decline in the Greek Empire. The Greek Empire was in decline, and the Roman Empire was being, more popular, was taking over everything. And Latin became the main language for the Romans. So the Romans, they have their own Bible under the Roman Catholic Church. And that Bible was in Latin, translated in Latin. So the Latin Bible is for the Roman Catholics, the Catholics. Roman Catholic Church. They have their own Bible, the Latin Bible, and they persecute everything else. No other Bible they wanted was to exist during that time. And it was during this time when the Roman Catholic Church was persecuting Christian under the Roman Catholic Church, which Catholic really mean universal church. Catholic means universal church. But the Roman Catholic was a mixture of church and state. That means the king at that time was also the head of the church. So the church and the Pope begin to be as one, church and state mixing together. So under the Roman Catholic, you got church and state mixing together. They were persecuting everybody who come in no Bible, print any Bible. They was executed and burned to the stake. All Bible and all books, any type of religious reference was burned. So this is the way it was in those days until a man called in the 15th century called Martin Luther. Martin Luther wrote the 95 Theses, and he laid out some stuff that was happening in the Roman Catholic Church. Now, Martin Luther was the priest in the Roman Catholic. And you get to understand now, the Catholic Church was claimed to be the first church, represent God's people in earth. Under the Peter, they say was the first pope, the apostle Peter. Because what Jesus said to him, that Peter, upon this rock I will build my church. And Peter, meaning rock at that time. So they took it to mean that Peter was supposed to go out and start the church. But the church, as far as the Protestant church, didn't really get started until the Apostle Paul came along. But that's for the New Testament. Right now, we are in the Old Testament. So I'm going to tell it like it is in the Old Testament. And we got to keep things in perspective. This is what was happening in the Old Testament. God chose his people, beginning from Abraham. God called Abraham to leave his house, leave his family, to leave that land, and to go out into a land where the God going to show him that he was going to give to him as inheritance. He was going to give him a land, and he was going to make Abraham a great nation, and through Abraham all the people of the earth would be blessed. So Abraham have received this promise, unconditional promise from God, because this was God starting out his own nation. In one day, God called Abraham out and started his own nation. This is going to become the great nation of Israel. This was going to be the Hebrew people, and under Jacob, name changed to Israel. The name of Jacob was changed to Israel, and through Israel, 12 sons. Really it was 13, but 12 that we mostly refer to in the Bible. Jacob, 12 sons. And they become the Israelites. The Israelites were established, was only about 70 people at the time when they went into Egypt. And when they went into Egypt for 430 years, they came out in thousands and thousands out of Egypt because they were multiplying. There was I guess there was replenishing the Israelites, that they were so plentiful at one time that Pharaoh, after Joseph, believed that if we let these Israelites or these Hebrew people continue to having babies, they're going to overtake Egypt. So there was a decree passed by Pharaoh to kill all the male child. Kill all the male child by the Hebrew. So there won't be so many people. But God was protecting his people, that even the handmaid, the people who deliver children, they was unable to do it because they had the baby so fast before the Pharaoh people get to the house to take their babies. God delivered the mother to have their kids before that could happen. So that didn't work out too well for Pharaoh. But it ongoing until comes Moses. Moses came along as a deliverer to deliver the people out of bondage, out of siege, out of exile, to take them out into the promised land. But first they had to go through the Sinai, through Mount Sinai, through the wilderness. And you notice that in the wilderness, God gave Moses measurement to build a tabernacle. Everything that was supposed to be inside that tabernacle was given to Moses. And Moses was to build the tabernacle exactly the way God commanded him to do. So Moses did exactly what God wanted him to do. And God dwelled with the Israelite, with the Hebrew people in the wilderness, in the tent. And they could see the glory of God over the tabernacle in the wilderness. God was with his people by fire at night and by clouds in day. God lead his people fighting all these other nations around. And this is one thing that God promised. He said, please do not intermingle with these other nations. Do not go into marriage with these other nations. Stay away from all these idols, idol worshiper. These other nations have other gods, and they commit a lot of idolatry. But the people of Israel, are the Hebrew people, the Israelites, they did not obey God's command. And they saved some of these people, and they got married into marriage with these Gentile nations, all these other nations. And this is what corrupted the Israelites to having other gods. This is why they was in disobedience to God. God was fighting their battles and they still were in disobedience. Just imagine if God was with us today doing the same thing. God rained down fire to burn up the wicked. God deliver his people when they're in battle, when they're outnumbered by other nation, by other Gentile warriors and kings. God fight their battles. No other battle. I like the battle in Rephidim, but I also like the battle with Joshua when the sun stopped moving and stayed still for a whole day until the Israelite defeated. I forgot the name of the Gentile nation at that time. But God delivered his people, took them through wars. All that time, God took them through all this time. And the thing about it is, we get to the book of Chronicles. And Chronicle is referring back to see what took place, what God promised to his people, and what God delivered to his people, and what was going to be the future king that was to come. Because all the kings, all 20 kings, well, 20 in the north, 20 kings in the south, no good kings in the north kingdom before they was taken into captivity. But in the southern kingdom, 20 kings, only 8 of them was good kings. 8 of them trying to reestablish the worship, the temple worship, and to make sacrifices. And they got the Levitical priesthood was still going. But until the Babylonian took them into captivity and destroyed, Jerusalem was destroyed, was burned down with fire. The walls of Jerusalem was broken down. and the children of Israel were left all alone. Many of them, majority was taken into captivity, but the other ones was leave to take care of certain things, the land in Jerusalem, until they returned from captivity. And the prophet promised that after 70 years in captivity, God was going to call his people out of exile to return to the land that he promised to Abraham. This God's promise to Abraham, the land, the nation, he's going to be a great nation, and all the people of the world is going to be blessed through the seed of Abraham. And that traces down from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob to Moses to Joshua. Now we into the kings. We have the first king. Saul was a Benjamite, but quickly dismissed Saul because he was a Benjamite, until King David. King David was the first king, and King David was a man of God's own art. God loved David and made a promise with David that he was going to establish the kingdom of Judah, an everlasting kingdom, and that upon the throne of David there shall be no end to the throne of David. But what happened? By the time of Zedekiah, Zedekiah was the last king to reign in Judah. The last king. And they blinded him, took his eyes out after they murdered his children right before they took his eyes out. That was the last thing that Zedekiah saw. And from that day on until this day, Jerusalem did not have a king. Until Jesus, the King of the Jews, the Jews were waiting for a king. They have been waiting for thousands of years now. And they're waiting for the king to return. See, they expected a king to reestablish the kingdom of David, the dynasty of David. And they're still waiting. So when Jesus came, the first advent of Jesus, the Jews rejected Jesus. They did not accept him as the Messiah, as God's son who came into this world. They were looking for a king who was going to defeat the Roman army and to reestablish the kingdom of Jerusalem and to reestablish the temple in Jerusalem. So at this point, the Jews, at this point, they're trying to rebuild the temple back in the place where it was in Jerusalem under Zerubbabel, under Ezra, under Nehemiah. They're trying to reestablish that temple that they rebuilt for the second time. So after all these years went by, because after Chronicles now, we're going to go into Ezra, Nehemiah, we're going to go into Esther, and then we're going to go into the book of Job, and after Job, then the Psalms. But all these 3-4 people, they believe that Ezra was the one who wrote the book of 1st and 2nd Chronicles. No one really know who wrote these books. But they gave it basically what is to come in the future. The Jews are waiting for a king. The Jews are still waiting for this king. And these are God's people, God's chosen people. God called out these people, established them. But when the moment when Christ came in the New Testament, that he said, I came to my own, and my own accept me and did not receive me. So he established with the Gentiles. What was for the Jews went to the Gentiles, but that was only for a time until everything been fulfilled at the right time. At that time, God will return to his people to bring them together to establish a temple and expect the King, Jesus, going to be returned to reign upon the throne of David. At this time, God is reigning on the throne, but he is in the heavenly kingdom. Jesus with his Father is in the heavenly kingdom as our high priest at this point. Jesus, the first priesthood under the order of Melchizedek. So Jesus is the high priest, our high priest at this point. All people, all nations, not only for the Jews, under the order of Melchizedek, the first king of Salem, king of Jerusalem. That was the name before Jerusalem. Salem is the name of Jerusalem before it became Jerusalem. First king of Salem, Melchizedek. You find this in the book of Hebrew, but that's in the New Testament. But I'm going to stay focused on the Old Testament right now because we're under the Old Covenant. And I just want my brothers and sisters to know that what was written or is written in the Old Covenant was for God and his Hebrew, the Israelite people. There's a few messages for the Gentiles that we should follow for our examples. Matter of fact, it told you that in the book of Corinthians, I think it's the first book of Corinthians, that what was happening to the Hebrew people, the Israelite people, or the Jews in the wilderness was written for our examples and for our admonition, for us to know that we should not follow what they did to God and how they disobey God in the wilderness. So at this point, that's for our example, for us to understand what is written in the Old Testament. Because without the Old Testament, we will never understand the New Testament, the New Covenant. We have Old Covenant, God, Yahweh, Almighty Yahweh, the eternal God, Jehovah God, with the Jews, with the Israelites, with the Hebrew people, the same nation. God was establishing his kingdom with the Jews. Now, the Gentile comes in the New Testament. So what was happening there, God and his people. So we have to understand that they didn't have the Holy Bible in those days. They didn't even have the Old Testament at that time. Because the Old Testament didn't come not English translation. They got the first books of the laws, books of Moses, and these are the books that came after the exile into Babylonian or the Assyrian with the last 10 tribes, and then there's 2 tribes in the south, the Judah, taken into captivity by Babylonians with Nebuchadnezzar. They're coming out of captivity by the end of 2nd Chronicle. They was returning from exile. So after we go through the book of 2nd Chronicle, we're going to jump right into Ezra next week sometime. So God bless you. I hope you tune in and listen to Live Bible Reading Ministry with Minister Junior Mendez, kind of narrating what's happening in this ministry. Live Bible Reading Ministry. You can find us online at livebiblereadingministry.com. You can find us on Facebook, Live Bible Reading Ministry, or on YouTube, or in Facebook, Live Bible Reading Ministry group. There is a group called Live Bible Reading Ministry where I post all my videos establishing Live Bible Reading each night at 10 o'clock. Sometimes we're not on Facebook or YouTube. We're on Twitter, or we on Twitch or Instagram. So sometimes I move around a little bit, but we always pick up where we left off when we come back to Facebook and YouTube. But you could always find each reading on YouTube, Live Bible Reading Ministry and YouTube channel. Please subscribe, make a comment, like us on Facebook. Please let us know you're watching. Give us an amen when you hear the words of the Lord, because I'm not going to preach much like the preacher in the church. I am just going to play for you. I'm going to read live reading of the scriptures, Old Testament scriptures. So please tune in. I thank you very much for listening, each and every one of you. And if you have children, you could also let your children listen to these, because this is like a play. Even though they cannot read, but they could listen. So please Tune in to Live Bible Reading Ministry each night. Sometime we repeat. We always give you an overview, our introduction to each book of the Bible when we present it. Or before we present it, and we might give you a replay and a repeat sometime, because I know some of you cannot watch every night and it's overwhelming. And I also want to thank each one. I want to thank you, all of you, who I post on your page or send you a link or a text or a video. Please forgive me. I just want to establish a little bit more. And most of you, my friends on Facebook, but anyone who do not want to hear the Bible, please unfriend me. Please unfriend me. You don't need to be friends with me, because I'm going to keep posting videos. I'm going to keep posting the scriptures. And you might not be a religious person or a godly person or a righteous person, or you just don't want to hear that. Please turn me off. Just unfriend me, please, because I'm going to keep sending these links to you. Okay? I'm just doing this because you want my friend, use my friend on Facebook or on Twitter. And if you get that message, please, if you like what's going on, give me a like or an amen. And I thank you very much for tuning. It's 10 o'clock. Time to listen to Live Bible Reading Ministry tonight. We're going to come to you with the book of 2 Chronicles. So tune in. Live Bible Reading Ministry. Thank you. Amen. But now,